Ohio Congresswoman Shontel Brown, who joins you right now. She's a member of the House Oversight and Agricultural Committees. Congresswoman, thank you so much. Your reaction to the mayor speaking about this and the need for doing it, and what you say or have heard he intends to do now with signing, which he has just done apparently with that executive order. How effective will this be?
Well, let me just start off by saying that if we're going to keep it real, we know that Trump has no expertise in preventing crimes. In fact, I would say it's the opposite. He is an expert in committing them. And so what he is attempting to do is create a diversion, nothing more than another distraction. Trump is trying to create propaganda for Black and diverse cities to make them the target of his political opponents. He's demonizing urban communities and fueling unfounded fears. Let me be clear. I am pro public safety, but this is not it. This is not a serious use of resources from the federal government. In fact, I would argue it is misuse. It is abuse. I proudly voted for the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which was legislation that closed gun loopholes and actually funded crime prevention programs, Alex, things that City of Cleveland really benefited from. In fact, I've worked with our mayor to deliver resources because of that legislation, and we were able to bring funds home and crime started falling. Now, Trump doesn't care about really making cities safer, and that is apparent because what he did here in Cleveland, he froze $2 million, a $2 million gun violence prevention grant to help the Cleveland Peacemakers Alliance. And what they do is provide intervention and gun prevention programs and reduce the cycle of gang violence to support the victims. They pulled that money. So that shows you where Trump's values really are.
Congresswoman, stay with me. Let's listen together to the mayor of Chicago, everybody, Brandon Johnson, taking some questions.
Most of his taxes to benefit the ultra-rich or illegal. So this is not a surprise to us in terms of his erratic and petulant behavior. But this is also about making sure that we are strengthening all of our departments across the board to ensure that we are protecting Chicagoans. That's what this is about. Of course, we would have preferred to go through the natural course of the legislative process, and we will continue to do that with our investments. But this is about protecting the people of Chicago.
Can you talk about why you need an executive order to do that? Is this not work the city is already doing, informing people of their rights? What does this executive order actually do? Well,
one of the things that it does is it ensures that there's a clear distinction between our local police department and federal agents. It gives a very clear directive, but it also gives very specific directives to our law department to make specific FOIA requests so that if there's any immigration enforcement that's happening in our city, we have to know about it. Just back in June 4th, there was an entire operation in our city that the federal government didn't disclose. This is about uncovering the truth. But this is also about making sure that every single legal measure that's available to us, that my law department pursues it. But it's also ensuring that all of our departments are in lockstep to protect Chicagoans. That's what this is about. This president continues to go well beyond the bounds of the Constitution to the extent in which our democracy is in peril right now. I'm going to do everything in my power as the mayor of this city to protect Chicagoans.
How important do you think it is to be ahead of this before any federal agents are in Chicago to make sure that CPD and federal law enforcement know how to work together? And there's a lot of coordination that happens between those two, and I think this is a step forward, right, to make sure that you're taking out federal agents from the shadows and defining what we expect.
Well, look, you framed it quite well, and quite frankly, the reason why this executive order is so paramount is because even though we know that this president is behaving outside of the bounds of the Constitution, it hasn't stopped him, but it stops in Chicago. And so this is about making a very clear distinction between what our law enforcement engages in versus what federal agents engage in. Because look, we have collaborated before, particularly getting guns off the streets of Chicago, the trafficking of drugs, the trafficking of human beings across this country. You know, we have just had a major breakthrough where guns that were trafficked in from Indiana and Mississippi, we were able to interrupt that and get over 150 guns off the streets of Chicago. That's not what's happening right now. And so this executive order makes it emphatically clear that this president is not going to come in and deputize our police department.
Violet Miller, Chicago Sun-Times.
All right, we're going to continue monitoring this press conference there with the mayor of Chicago and listen to more of what he has to say. But I want to bring back the Congresswoman and ask her about, he's making a very good case for all that Chicago has done to protect itself, to lower incidents of crime, which makes all of this from the president and this move to federalize security in the city of Chicago deemed unnecessary. How does he push back against the federal government, against this administration? Because he's bringing facts and figures and talking about extreme, gun captures by the police and rounding up criminals. And it seems to fall on deaf ears with the administration.
And that's right. I think what the mayor pointed out is that this current president has no regard for the Constitution. And I want to reiterate that Democrats like myself, like the mayor, we are pro public safety and certainly want to make sure that our communities are safer. But what the president is doing, the way that he is going about it, does not support what he claims his mission is. He's not doing this unlawfully, illegally, setting up unlawful detention centers, investing more money into ICE than some of the branches of our military. It just makes no sense. And so what he's doing and the way he's going about it is all wrong. So we just want some transparency. We want some involvement in the process. This could be a very collaborative effort if he were going to do it, but no one can take this approach seriously until he starts including some of the Republican mayors that are experiencing some of the high crime statistics that he so claims he wants to address.
Mm-hmm. All right, Congressman, I want to talk about what happened on Friday when the White House informed Congress it plans to cut nearly $5 billion in approved foreign aid funding through a rarely used budgetary tactic. It's known as pocket rescissions. First time, frankly, in 50 years or so that a president has tried to attempt to implement this move. Give me a sense of Congress, which of course controls, it has the power of the purse, right? So what's happening here, and how effectively do you think the White House can hear any kind of pushback from Congress, given the fact that Republicans are in power in both chambers?
Well, this is the challenge with this current administration. What the president doesn't seem to understand is that the rescission to foreign aid is dangerous. This is something that helps us to establish new democracies. It provides national security for us, and it also helps establish new markets for our farmers. And as the second highest ranking Democrat on the Agriculture Committee, who just came back from the Farm Progress Show in Decatur and who has also visited some of my own farmers right here in rural Ohio, are very concerned these cuts, the tariffs, because it's creating such uncertainty in their market and in their markets. And so this is about security on many different levels. Food security is national security. And what he's doing when he's cutting foreign aid, he's just putting us in a more vulnerable position. And as you stated, Congress has the power of the purse, but this is a president who does not respect the law or the Constitution. And as a result, he and his rubber stamp MAGA Republicans are just rejecting their authority and turning their power over into his hands and letting this administration and this president do whatever it is that he thinks he wants to do. And he said it very plainly, I can do whatever I want to do, but that is in fact not the case. And until my Republican colleagues start to use their own authority to push back on this president, we are going to find ourselves quickly going into a downward spiral.
Let me ask you about the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, because the Oversight Committee's top Democrat, Robert Garcia, said on Friday that Epstein's estate is going to be handing over a book that reportedly claims that explicit 2003 birthday message from the president, along with others, sending their happy birthday wishes. How important is this document to the committee's investigation?
Well, let me start off by saying that Democrats have led with the efforts of making sure that we receive this information, because what has happened to the victims is a tragedy, and what Trump is doing to try to stop it is a travesty. We are going to keep pushing to make sure we get the files, and the Democrats have led on that effort. I think what's also important to note is that we have to decide if we're going to be a country that's going to protect the powerful or really pursue justice for all. And I think we know where Donald Trump stands on that subject. But the fact of the matter is the Epstein files, what they have released is nothing new so far. So it is important that we get this book. And I am proud of my colleagues on the Democratic Oversight Committee, the Democrats on the committee, for pushing for this information, because the victims absolutely deserve their justice.
Indeed, Congresswoman Shontel Brown, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you again.